Well, I've told you before, Larry. Every major institution hates you and wants you to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is very true. So is the
That's
problem
so
then,
blackmail.
is it more of
We can
a-
win, though. That's the white pill part of it. We can win. But the institutions hate you and want you to die. But
and
we can
control everything?
But we can defeat the institutions. That's not a problem.
That's true.
But
we here at Salty
inherently-
Streets will defeat the institutions.
Yes, but inherently they hate you and want you to die.
Well, and I mean, yeah, they definitely do. But
Dark, it's breaking him.
so would you say, Larry, in your estimation, is it more a rise in social apathy, or is it more a decline of social altruism? Or is
No,
or do they go hand in hand?
I think it's apathy. I think again, because I'm basic training, I think the most toxic thing we have going on right now is there's an astronomical amount of apathy. Because I think the cool thing about social media is we get to do the things we care about, right? And you could constantly be surrounded by the things you care about, right? And then, not to be rude to Gary Vee, but we basically have told kids, concentrate on the things that make you the happiest. Don't work on your weakness, only focus on your strength, which is super cool when you're growing a business. But as a human and as part of a culture, it is not very good, right? And so we have this awkward amount of collectivism, but collectivism in form of thought, right? And we have apathy and critical thinking.
Well, because apathy and collectivism go hand in hand. Because if
100%.
you want to be a part
Yes.
of collectivism, you don't need to worry about it. Someone else will.
Right.
100%.
Interesting.
And I think those two things are insane. And again, I see it a lot. I spend a lot of time on TikTok, right? I'll be just very forthcoming with that. I love the app.
Communist.
Big set. I might be, honestly.
I might be, he says.
I could be. Listen, I fight China so hard, but I use the shit out of TikTok.
Shoe on
so
Head gives
funny.
you a good speech, and you might be thinking about being a socialist.
Listen, that's what I'm saying. Maybe I don't want anything. Just control everything. But I'm seeing it there. It's people aren't trying to be their own and think smaller. They're literally I'm watching kids sell out, and I'm seeing, and I don't want to pick on women, but there's a lot of women who are just talking about how easy it is to make money doing OnlyFans, right? And there's a lot of money to be made there. And no one's talking about the other side is what we're losing, right? So there's an apathy towards the short-term local decision-making to then get something that will give us a quicker fix of happiness, right? And so
The dopamine hit.
yeah, exactly, right? And so I think we're constantly going to our lizard brains, and so the social apathy comes back to us because that doesn't make us feel good, right? That's not pushing my dopamine button, right? And I think that's why, again, we're manifesting these bad behaviors because right now it's so easy to find something like this phone, right? I could pull because of technology. I'm on a podcast with you. I could trade all my cryptocurrency, so I can DJ my cryptocurrencies. I can play Clash of Clans. I can go on TikTok.
Clash of Clans, bro? You still Clash of Clansing?
Oh, I'm heavy. I'm heavy.
Oh my
I
god,
haven't
that's
played that shit
so
in
funny.
years. I miss
Yo,
it.
Listen. If you guys come back, you let me know. I'm fine. I think the point is that because we don't ever have to be unhappy. So why would you be unhappy? Again, it doesn't feel good to do a lot of things, right? We talked about it before. It doesn't feel good to wake up at 4 a.m. It doesn't feel good to run a business. It doesn't feel good to make everything.
Responsibility is a bitch, dude.
100%. But there's no need for responsibility because again, we're creating a system where you don't have to. And I think the government is the fault of that. And you really saw it again with this. With the first stimulus care package, where people just stop work because they didn't have to, and everyone's they'll come back, and then what we saw is no, the fuck they won't, because again, why be unhappy if I don't have to? And I think that's what that social apathy is I think that's where that social apathy comes from, is the fact that why ever be unhappy?
Well,
And
and I think there's a step there I think you might have missed. Because when you say, we put all the reliance on the government and the government sucks at everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's our fault that we're putting all this on the government. That's it's not necessarily their fault they can't perform the things they're not supposed to do. Part of the root cause of all the problems we have now is because we're trying to get government to do the things they're not supposed to do. So they're fucking terrible at it, and they always have been, and they always will, because it's not designed to work that way. These are our social and cultural responsibilities that we are abdicating for apathy is probably the easiest way to do it, but it's fucking lazy. It's
Right.
it's just easier to have the higher authority try to take care of this for you, and then you also have somebody to blame for it. When all you need to do to find the person that is at fault and who you need to blame is look into a fucking mirror.
And I think that you could probably argue. We could probably spend 3 hours arguing which is the cause, whether the apathy is the cause of that, or whether the ceding of power to the government is the cause of the apathy. If people felt, and this is just a thought experiment at this point, if people felt as though their states were not giving them what they wanted, or the legislative branch wasn't working as quickly as they wanted, even though that's not how it's designed, they become apathetic, and therefore they're more willing to cede more power to the executive. Or if the ceding of power to the executive
So it's like a vicious
kind
cycle.
of highlights, quote unquote, for them how slow the legislative process is, which makes them more apathetic to it and makes them want to give more power to the executive. You think you could argue which one came first, and it would depend on probably which president you started with. So because you could argue from the ceding more power to the government side, that started in World War II. You know what I'm saying? When the federal government starts to have more programs that allow you to lean on them more as opposed to your state, even if it's a state program, it's funded by the federal government.
Yeah.
All this funding, or the vast majority of it, comes from the federal government. You know that because FDR sold you on all these plans. He told you what was happening. He's on TV all the time. He's telling you, right? So from that point forward, that leaning on the government could lead to that apathy, right? Or if you pick the starting point of George Bush, right, where the government is starting to infringe on you so heavily, and they're spying on everything that you do, and they are just in everything involved in your life. They're just, why the fuck am I bothering with anything? I know it's all happening to me already, so I just hands off. I don't want to deal with it. I can't. The government is already,
anyways.
The government is doing whatever they want. You know. And those are just two examples, right? And maybe they're poor ones because it's just off the top of my head. But I think that's definitely very interesting, because I don't think either one is necessarily false. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of, I guess, what I'm getting at.
Like when you look at my argument, right, as society being at fault mostly because we've allowed the government to take so much power. Like you said, it really depends on where you start that clock at.
Right.
And at a certain point, in a world war, generally speaking, you're going to want to be able to give the government more power to do shit because they're fighting a war, and it is literally like a life or death situation. Do you want to be man in the high castle? Not me. If government says you can't have sugar because we gotta feed the troops and shit, word, I'm down.
But the same is said for George Bush during the Iraq War, right? That at that time, all that the Patriot Act, all this stuff is in response to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's in response to the terrorist attacks, in response to 9/11, in response to the Iraq War, potential terrorism. They're saying it's going to happen any day. I just rewatched, this is slightly off topic, but I think this is great. I just rewatched, have either of you seen the movie The Report?
You be watching all these obscure movies?
I saw the trailer for it on
Amazon.
On Amazon, yeah, but I haven't watched it yet.
So you have to watch it. You have to watch it, right?
Oh!
It's about a guy named Daniel Jones who wrote the report on the enhanced interrogation program during all that, all the black sites and everything. It's like a 7,000-page document that he put together, and it outlines how Gina Haspel, who is the current director of the CIA,
the one that's hiding the pedos.
She was one of the people that passed on investigating the people who planned and carried out 9/11. She chose to lead away from that, right? She then was a director of one of the black sites in which they did enhanced interrogation. She oversaw the deletion of tapes of torture carried out by CIA agents.
That's all during her confirmation hearing.
All documented. She is now the director of the fucking CIA.
Man, we make a lot of good decisions here.
She had a direct hand in 9/11 coming to play. She is now the director of the CIA.
So, again, I not to be a conspiracy theorist, even though I asked you to start a conspiracy theorist thing. This is what frustrates me, or not frustrates me, is it seems like this would it seems too coincidental or too well planned out for this to be random, right?
How?
Like, Right, exactly. I get hit with this a lot, right? Like I'll sit here and I'll have this back and forth with somebody, and they'll be like, "Well, you're thinking too hard of it. It's just a coincidence, right?" And then I try to lay it out mathematically. Say that like you laid out like 4 things, right? So say that like each of those was 1 and 2, right? That goes from like a 50-50 chance, right? If we play it down to like a 12.5% chance, right? So we've easily started to cut our odds, right?
Right.
And then you start layering on these thousands and thousands of decisions. I was just like,
Millions of other people too.
100%, right? And it just seems to always be falling into place. Like it always seems to be like there's so many layers involved, and it always sees. And like I'm seeing it over and over again. It's starting to play out again. And this, this Ghislaine Maxwell thing, right?
Yes.
And like again, like they're like the CEOs are quitting. Then
Right.
the senior medical examiner is quitting, and then everyone's just like, "Well, it's just a coincidence." I was just like, what? And I don't want to be the guy that's just like, "Why today?" But I just sit there, it's like, "Why quit now?"
Yeah.
And that we'll never get to touch him. We'll never get to ask him, right? And like it's just like, hey, why did you choose today? And they always have like the perfect thing, and then so I'm satiated, right? For example, like when the CEO quit, right? Like, why did you quit? Like that's super weird for you to quit now.
Jack
And he's
Dorsey?
just like, well, this
Jack Dorsey.
Yeah, Jack Dorsey quit. And he's like, well, he changed Square, and I guess he's changing it to Block, and he's like supposed to be focusing on blockchain. And you're like, man, that makes so much sense and it's so plausible, but it just seems so insane that you guys would almost in line on the same day quit.
So
Like,
I have another layer to add to this.
It leads to your original apathy question, I think. All that, seeing all that shit, especially like the CIA stuff.
Yeah.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready.